They watched the dragon girl starve, and laughed, as if her hunger was a show meant only for their pleasure, and she lay on the stone ground of the city, square, thin, broken, and silent, while her stomach screamed louder than any voice she no longer had, and the smell of food drifted through the air, like a cruel memory. She could not escape, and her wings, once wide and proud, were torn and folded beneath her, like useless shadows, and her scales, dulled by dust, blood, and time, reflected nothing of the fire she once carried inside her, and people gathered around her every day, merchants, nobles, soldiers, children, all staring, pointing, whispering, laughing, as if she were not alive, as if pain was something amusing when it belonged to someone else. And she remembered a sky that once belonged to her, and mountains that echoed her roar, and a mother who told her that dragons were born to protect balance, not to rule or destroy, and that kindness was strength, not weakness. But that world burned when humans hunted her kin, when steel met scale, when magic bound her fire, and a curse was carved into her soul, so that her flames would never answer her call again. And they dragged her here, not as a prisoner of war, but as a lesson, a warning, a monster displayed to teach obedience and fear. And day after day, she grew smaller, not in body, but in hope, until even breathing felt like a betrayal of the death she longed for, and laughter became the sound that followed her dreams, and hunger the only thing that reminded her she still lived. And then one day, when her vision blurred, and the world narrowed to pain and noise, a human voice rose, without cruelty, without excitement, without hunger for suffering, and it asked, "Why is she starving?" And the crowd turned confused, annoyed, and a man stepped forward, not armored, not crowned, not powerful, just human, with tired eyes and gentle hands, and he knelt before her, ignoring the guards, the spears, the warnings, and the unspoken law that said monsters deserved nothing. And he placed food before her, warm, simple, real, and said, "Come eat with me." And the square froze, because kindness did not belong here, and she did not trust it, because kindness had always come with chains or blades. But hunger was stronger than fear, and she reached for the food, shaking, expecting pain, but none came, and she ate, slowly, tears falling freely, because no one had ever seen her cry, and lived. And the man stayed beside her, eating his own meal, as if this were normal, as if sharing food with a broken dragon was not an act of rebellion. And when soldiers dragged her away, that night, when the chains cut deeper, and the water stopped, and punishment came for the crime of being pitied, she held on to that moment, like a spark buried in ash. And the man returned every day, not always with food, sometimes only with presence, and his name was Elias. And he spoke to her as if she were still someone, as if her past mattered, as if her future existed. And the king watched from his high seat, angry that laughter had softened into silence, angry that fear had cracked into doubt. And so they decided to end it publicly, finally, completely. And at dawn they bound her tighter than ever before, crushing her broken wing until she screamed, and dragged Elias to the platform to show the price of mercy. And the crowd returned, eager, afraid, silent, and the king spoke of order, and monsters, and justice, while the dragon girl looked at Elias and told him she was glad she ate with him, because it reminded her she was alive. And as the blade rose, Elias laughed, not in madness, but in calm relief, and told them they never wondered why she never burned them, because the curse was never meant to break her, it was meant to hide her, and that feeding her was never about food, but about choice and belief, and seeing her as more than a monster. And the curse, shattered like glass, and fire returned, not wild but true, and her scales shone, and her wings, healed in chains, melted, and the crowd fell back in terror and awe, and she stood whole, powerful, and alive. And she did not burn the city, or the king, or the soldiers, because mercy was the truth she carried now. And Elias stood beside her, untouched by flame, because he never feared her. And she asked him why he did it, and he said, because someone had to choose kindness first. And together they walked away, leaving behind a world that would never forget the day laughter died, and hope rose, and the dragon girl learned that even in the darkest hunger, one gentle voice can change destiny. After they walked away from the ruined square, the world did not suddenly become kind, and the dragon girl did not suddenly feel safe, because power does not erase pain, and freedom does not heal memories, and every step she took away from the city felt unreal, as if chains still dragged behind her, and fire still burned under her skin, waiting for punishment that did not come. And Elias walked beside her, silent, not because there was nothing to say, but because some moments were too fragile for words. And when the city walls disappeared behind them, she collapsed to her knees, shaking, not from weakness, but from the weight of everything she had survived, and the sky above felt too open, too wide, like it might fall on her, and she pressed her hands into the dirt, breathing hard, afraid that if she stopped moving she would vanish. And Elias knelt beside her, not touching, not rushing, just staying, and that was enough. And as night came, the cold returned, and with it the memories of cages and crowds and laughter, and she whispered that the world would hunt her again, that kings would send armies, that humans would never forget what she was. And Elias answered that they already knew, and still some would choose differently. And they walked until her wings trembled and her fire dimmed, and he built a small fire, not of magic, but of wood and warmth, and she stared at it, unsure if she deserved comfort. And he shared food again, simple food, like before, and she ate slower, this time tasting more than hunger, tasting choice, and something like trust. And days passed, and rumors followed them. Like shadows, villages whispered of a dragon who did not burn, and a human who walked beside her, and some doors closed and some hands reached out, shaking but sincere. And one night, as they slept, soldiers came, not shouting, not proud, but afraid, and they tried to kill her while she dreamed, and she woke to pain, and instinct and fire surged, ready to destroy. And Elias stood between her and the blades, unarmed, and said, "Stop." And for a moment she believed history would repeat itself, that kindness would die again. But the soldiers dropped their weapons, because monsters did not stand still, and monsters did not protect humans. And she realized then that fear could be unlearned, and that power did not have to prove itself through blood. And as they continued, she told Elias her true name, one no one had spoken since her mother died, and he listened like it mattered. And she asked why he chose her when the world did not, and he said because someone once chose him when he was starving in a different way, and that kindness is never wasted, even when it seems invisible. And near the mountains where dragons once ruled, she stopped and looked at the sky and felt grief and hope twist together, and she knew she would never be what she was, but she could be something new. And as dawn rose, she spread her wings, not to flee, but to stay and protect. And Elias smiled, not because she was powerful, but because she was free. And the world moved forward, changed quietly, deeply, forever.